Okay. It looks like we are currently live, so thank you guys. If you're watching this afterward, welcome to either our Facebook wall or YouTube channel. And as a reminder, these will always be posted on our YouTube channel afterward as well. So my name is Billy. And we usually, do the thing where we wait for people to come on in here. If you do come in here, make sure you tell us you're here and say hi, ask questions. We've got a very special, here we go. Looks like some people are starting to come in. So we got a very special live today. So my name is Billy. I am the Vice President of Nutrition and Communication for Green Juju. And Green Juju is a small company. It's really just two of us. Actually, technically, it's now four of us. Two because Kelly got a personal assistant, and also we now have a part-time data person. So we're hitting the big time now, and it's such a great thing, I think, for just the products and nutrition in general, because there is no bureaucracy of people who make products at Green Juju. It's just whatever me and Kelly think is cool and what we want to do there. And I have been working with Green Juju for about a year and a half ish. And, Kelly has been making amazing products since 2014. So thank you guys for coming. We love transparency. And one of the reasons we typically do these lives is because we want you guys to be able to ask questions, to know who makes your products, and to be able to really see behind the scenes as much as possible. So today we
That's
have a
exciting, isn't it? Behind the scenes.
yes, exactly. If only people could see the behind the scenes currently of my dog maybe trying to eat the Christmas candles that are in the window. So that's a great thing. Um, so I have a very special guest here today, and I always struggle with your last name. So can you
Uh,
just say your last name?
sure, it's Carol Smaya, and I have trouble saying my own name sometimes.
Oh my
But
gosh.
think of it as Smaya. I'm a thoroughbred Czech.
See, I would have butchered that. So I'm so glad you. So Carol is the genius mind behind something called Mind Pet Platter. And I thought, coming into this live, normally we do a Q&A, and we have somewhat of a theme here. We're going to do a little bit different today. We'd love to take your questions on the things we're going to talk about today. But I love obviously nutrition and research and how that and just new things. That's what really drives me in the industry, and especially at Green Juju, is what can we do differently or better, or how do we make something the best possible version of something. That's really what drives me. And thinking outside the box is something I try to pride myself on. And so when I started to hear rumblings, we actually spoke at a conference together at the same time one year.
Right.
And I was out to dinner with Charlie and Larry from Podega. And I said, "What was your favorite thing that you saw?" And they said it was your presentation. Um,
Oh, thank you.
and so that really piqued my interest, because I have a lot of respect for what they're doing over there. And I said, um, boy, there must be something to this. So can you tell us a little bit about what brought you to making this?
Sure. Well, the interesting thing, my academic background is in psychology and sociology, and when I started out my professional career, I was studying human eating behavior and worked with global food companies, National Institute of Health, all these other things, and really got into understanding how people eat and what makes them eat the way they do. But it was actually my little dog, Pip, who is no longer with us, but she was adorable, a little Havanese. And she used to inhale her food to the point that she would let out a belch that a 300-pound football player could do. I couldn't feed her when people were here because they would have tears streaming down their cheeks. I mean, it was that obvious. So one day I was making chicken breast for her, cut it up on a board, and my daughter Hannah said, "Oh, Mom, don't throw that away. Give the scraps and juices to Pip." So I did, and lo and behold, a dog that usually inhales her food started sniffing, walking around, licking, and I started to see these different behavior elements. And when my husband had come home, I told him, and he said, "Oh my God, Eureka." So that's what launched us into this. So I started studying the feeding habits of dogs, but it led me into the whole area of wolves. And the closest living relative to our dogs is the gray wolf. And so when you start studying instinctive feeding behaviors, a whole new world opens up in terms of understanding your dog and their feeding needs are. And when you think about it, we changed their feeding ecology. We went from, in the wild, they had carcass feeding, and then we went to scattered feeding as they came closer into our lives and into our homes, and then into bowl feeding. And so what we found out is that the bowl is not conducive to how they instinctively eat. And our goal was to find a different approach because so many dogs, I would say 90% of dogs, have some sort of feeding issue going on in their life. So that led me to volunteering at zoos, working with nutritionists there, talking to wildlife experts. And we came down to develop the pet platter, which took about 4.5 years to develop.
Wow. And I just want you to know I was listening that entire time. I just had to stop my dog from chewing on my daughter's baby pen. So I was definitely, that is absolutely incredible. And what I love is it comes from, your own dog and your own love for your own dog and, solving a serious issue. It's a very nice parallel to, why Green Juju was started, for Kelly's dog, Bailey, and needing to get Bailey ready for surgery and trying to work through some health issues with, by developing this vegetable blend. And so, it always starts there. And I would say, obviously my own journey started with my dog Lua as well, who is also no longer with us. But so that's really, really interesting. So if you could talk a little bit about what you saw with the when you were looking at the wolves and the kind of specifics that you put into the platter itself.
Sure. Well, one of the most interesting things, and for people who have joined us today, I highly recommend, if you have a zoo that is available to you, go and observe a carcass feeding. And the reason I say that is you will see instinctive habits that exist within your own dog. Oh, hello there.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to bring him up to keep it. So
he hasn't logged in yet, but that's okay. We'll let him stay.
Yeah, exactly.
But carcass feedings basically show the natural instinctive ways, how they tear meat, how they position themselves when eating, how they crunch bones, how they tear hide, how they chew everything. And after a carcass feeding takes place, it's the notion of that feast or famine instinct. Nothing is left. Okay? It is completely clean. But when we started studying this, and I have not only worked with wildlife experts, but also have observed videotapes, and I've seen more deconstructions of carcasses than I care to imagine. But the one thing you notice is that, number one, it's a very interactive thing. They are very engaged. And when they have the carcass, they actually move around it. They are involved, and they even circle the carcass to make sure that nobody can come down and steal their food at all. And when we started to look at that, it became apparent they have an extraordinary sensory circuit. Okay. First of all, they see the world through their nose. They have over 100 million sense sites, and they smell 10,000 times better than we do. Okay. It's what drives them, the sense of smell completely. If you're sticking food into a bowl, all of that is piled high and they can't smell and interact with the food at all. The other thing is their sense of hearing. They hear at much higher frequencies and hear inaudible sounds as well. So you may not be hearing what's going on, but their ears actually rotate to capture different sounds going on behind them.
Especially these ears.
Pardon me?
I said especially these ears.
Yeah, especially those
It's the
ears.
exact visual that we all needed.
See, look at it. Exactly. And see how they rotate? They actually turn like a radar to pick up where the sound is coming from. So you have this sense of smell, the hearing's going on, and what people may not realize is they do not have a lot of taste buds. They have about 1,700 taste buds compared to our 9,000. So when they smell, they're actually tasting their food with that. And they also have an additional scent organ that opens up to the back roof of the mouth, which helps them with the sense of smell too. So if your pet ever opens their mouth and is sort of bouncing their head around, they're trying to pick up on smells to interpret things. And the amazing thing is their decoding section of the brain, which decodes sense, is 40% of their brain. So the nose is important. The hearing's important. The third strongest sense that they have is their eyesight. But here again, the bowl, when they look down into the bowl, it actually blocks their peripheral vision. And they're very nearsighted. But the other thing, their retina is predominantly rods. And what that means is they're highly sensitive to motion detection. So if food is bouncing around in the bowl, it can heighten anxiety, which is the reason why a lot of dogs dump food out of the bowl, because it's a little too threatening. And then if it's metallic in any way and light is bouncing on it, they're going to pick up on that, and that creates anxiety as well. So those are some of the key sensory elements that's going on. So what we realized with the pet platter is you need to have open sides so all of their senses can interact openly. And if you're stuffing food in a bowl, really what you want to do is spread it around, because they're going to be sniffing on that food and detecting what's going on. The other important element is when we were designing the shape, we tried a number of different shapes, but the reason we came up with this and the size of it is it has to be large enough so they feel they're in control. The reason for that, again, is that they use their paws and their body to position themselves and manage their feeding territory. So if it's in a bowl, they really don't have any control over how they eat. It's sort of forced. So when you look, we did lots of observational studies looking at different breeds of dogs positioned in a bowl. You will see that they stand very rigid and inhale that food. And basically the bowl shuts down the senses. They're trying to scoop it up as quick as possible. There's survival instinct. So when they're trying to eat and there's noise going on and they're seeing reflections and all these other things, they're going to inhale that food to make sure that nobody takes it away from them. And one of our big finds, which has helped lots of people, is never feed your dog from a bowl in a kitchen corner. The bowl blocks the periphery vision, and then the side walls block the periphery vision. And when you corner an animal into that corner, that's where fear and aggression can come in as well. So, all these things, it was just looking at observing how wolves, go into the hunt, how they kill their prey, how they interact with it. Sometimes they'll eat the organs directly out. I've seen other videos where the organs are lined up and then they selectively choose what they want to eat. But I think if there's one thing I'd like to leave a thought about is observe your dog's feeding behavior. Look at what they're doing. Are they enjoying it? Are they engaged in it? Are they sniffing it? Are they moving around it? Because 95% of their time in the wild was spent doing that. So while we have domesticated our dogs, we need to also realize that there's over 99% DNA that's similar between dogs and wolves, and a lot of those instincts operate at the same time. How's that for a short summary?
That makes sense. Do you like the feeding method of a almost 2-year-old child throwing food down to the dog as the dog waits below? Is that something that's instinctive in nature as well? Because that's this guy, he gets a lot of
Go
food
ahead.
that way.
Well, it definitely slows down their eating. I will say that.
No, that's so interesting because I've never thought about it in the way that they would experience less when it comes to taste buds, but maybe more tasting, but just through their nose. Because it's interesting also you say that because having worked at dog daycares for many years in my
Yeah.
past, I remember working with dogs that were deaf and blind, that were some of the happiest dogs that I
Mm-hmm.
knew. And I was thinking to myself, this is because they're just experienced, dogs experience the world in such a different way
Yeah.
um, in terms of doing that. And so um, we get a lot of really great pictures that people tag us in when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to, people putting different bowls together and things like that. And I think a lot of our products specifically, are going to go really well in this. You mentioned something to me before we got on about, so we have raw goat's milk. We make the best raw goat's milk in the industry. And what was your idea for maybe goat's milk and bone broth and some things like that with the platter?
Yeah, it's great. All you have to do is take the broth or the goat's milk, fill the little scoops on the pep platter, pop it in the freezer, take it out, and what you have effectively done is to make small ice cream cones. And dogs love licking that up. The scoops are actually designed to resemble the ends of bones, and the sizes are designated based on the size of the dog, so the tongue can actually get in and eat everything because you want to make sure your dog doesn't have any leftover food smell because they'll go into obsessive compulsive licking to try to get it then. But the goat's milk and bone broth also, the licking of that releases positive endorphins in their brain, which are rewarding and relaxing. So, for example, if you're going to be gone for 2 to 3 hours and you're leaving your dog behind, leave him that treat. And we've had different vets use it who had dogs with separation anxiety. They would come back and the dog would be asleep by the pep platter and everything was calm. So positive licking, you never want a dog to, there are some devices where it's really difficult for the dog's tongue to get at it. So with the strength of their sense of smell, they're smelling the food, but they can't get to it. And that's when it can lead to behavioral problems because they become very rigid and just keep licking and aren't successfully getting at it. So you never want to create that kind of frustration with your dog.
Yeah, and one of the things I have thought about a lot more, I tend towards the science of every food. Even in my own diet, that's how I look at my breakfast. I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking to myself, how do I meet these nutrient requirements? It's ridiculous. My
Right.
wife would probably tell you how annoying it is, but I I was thinking more about green juju, and I was thinking more about what we do and the products that we make, and even the ones I use for huckleberry, say. And I thought to
Mm-hmm.
myself, it's not always just about what is going to be the best possible thing nutrition wise. We always want to do that, but we also want to do something that they will just enjoy and that they will just get
Mm-hmm.
different flavors. So even before I knew about this, I was at least trying to spread stuff out. If you take
Right.
our one of our blends, say Just Greens or Bailey's blend or the Golden Blend, and you take Bam's Beats, our fermented product, and
Right.
are putting them around, you're just going to increase your dog's enjoyment. And sometimes I think we can kind of lose sight of that. And which I think is kind of the whole process of what you're talking about is this idea of, we look at, okay, they need walks, they need, by the way, my dog gets I walk him at least 2 miles a day and he's still a maniac. So I'm clearly not a dog trainer, but I need to invest in some treat puzzles as well, apparently.
Yeah.
Um, so we look at that and we say, okay, exercise is stimulating. They need good food to eat. They need, less chemicals in their environment. They need all these things. But we don't truly think about the enjoyment they're having while they're actually eating.
I'm so glad you brought that up because actually, Dr. Jeff Feynman and I have been working on a happiness equation, trying to come up with what are the core elements in a dog's life that you can provide them, which leads to a happier and healthier dog. And I think going back to the comparison of wolves, when you think about it, with all their time being spent hunting and sniffing out food, the true enjoyment of who they are was selecting nutrients that would help them survive and be most nutritionally fulfilling. And so you're actually stimulating their brain. And when you think about 40% of their brain dedicated to deciphering scents, it's sort of like you're letting them be who they really are. And there's no better joy that you can give an animal because going from 95% of their time to 2 minutes of eating twice a day, we created an imbalance in their life. So with the pet platter, then, like with all the green juju products, just and I want you to create a green juju platter so we can share that. Then is let them explore the different scents. They'll be circling it and they'll actually assess what they want to eat first, second, and third.
Oh
And
yeah,
you'll
and that's kind of fun to figure out what their favorite thing is. Well, and it's a really interesting thing because we can combine that
Mhm.
with some interesting stuff we're looking at Green Juju, which is to say what we're finding, what people who study the microbiome are finding now is that dogs that eat raw diets typically don't have a diverse enough microbiome, and they don't have enough
Mhm.
microbiome activity, and that's because of lack of diversity in the diet. It's also because of lack of diversity specifically in plants. And so we know that, I think through good intentions, because what happened was we used to make dog food of really plants that don't make any sense. And that was
Right.
all they were made of for the most part. So then when we swung this direction and said, hey, we're going to make healthy food, we cut, for a while there, oh, dogs don't need plants. Plants are what got us here. But now we're finding through the research that the right plants are absolutely essential to diet. So this will be a good opportunity for those watching who are using the Mind Pet Platter, those who are considering using it, if you're doing a frozen raw diet, say, and you have and it's a ground frozen raw diet, to adding the greens for microbiome activity, but also for just, I mean, when you open up green juju blends, they smell amazing anyway. So just just adding for not only the nutrition part of this to get a much better diet going, but also to get more variety on the platter in regard to
Right.
doing that, or the freeze dried treats we have, or our fermented blends, or if you're dealing with a animal who's dealing with some health issues, if you're doing those fermented golden paste, those types of things, I think is a really good marriage. Dr. Feynman is in Wisconsin, right?
No, he's in on the East
Oh,
Coast.
th- yes,
Yeah,
yes, totally. I don't know
I don't
why I always think he's
New
from
Hampshire.
Wisconsin. Yes, a hundred
I think he's in
percent.
New Hampshire.
Yeah, 100%. I did a talk in his group, but for some reason I always place him in Wisconsin. It's probably just because I love Wisconsin so much. I don't know why I always do that, but yes, I'm always reminded of that to be able to
Well,
do that.
and I think what you'll see as well is when you engage them more in the eating environment, what you're really basically doing is grabbing their attention, having their thought process engaged in that, and then things that will typically set off anxiety, such as loud noises or high traffic areas where their senses are pulled apart and going in different directions. You're actually focusing their attention, and we oftentimes talk about reducing that anxiety, making a calm feeding environment for your dog where they can really enjoy themselves. So a lot of Jeff's focus is going back to uh, that happiness of what we can give our pet, and just thinking twice about your current. And in fact, I talk about the platter challenge. Feed your dog from a bowl, okay? And then if you don't have a pet platter, take something a little different, and just see how your dog interacts differently with it. But you will see more of these wolf type behaviors come out that are engaging and so much fun to watch. But that 2-minute meal is going to go into an 8 to 10 minute meal. And they also adopt this as their personal feeding territory. So they'll visit it during the day. You can leave little treats out. And so we even have some pictures from customers where their pet sleeps by it with their paw on it, waiting for the next meal or the next treat to come. So we also help with rescues and mobility dogs that are going to be transitioned into different homes. And it's a great partner to have, and they know they're going to get great food on it. So
Well, and I'm imagining as well, with our freeze dried whole food bites, and kind of providing a different kind of texture and a different sort of
right.
along with the meal. The other thing I'm thinking about, which if you could sort of elaborate on, is a lot of our customers are using our raw goat's milk. Some of them are fermenting it, which is really cool, but some of them are not as well. So it's not going to be in a thicker state. It's just going to be that liquid state. So can you
Mhm.
elaborate a little bit more for our customers who are using the goat's milk on how that works with the platter?
Yeah, actually, you don't have to worry at all. It can be very liquidy or sort of heavier. But the way the platter is designed is to fill on the inside scoops. And then when it pours over, we have this ridge. And the dogs love to go around the ridge, licking up all of that liquid. And it really becomes a licking enjoyment for them. So it can be any type of liquid, whether you make it yourself or not. It works perfectly. You can freeze it or not. It's completely up to you. But the pet platter, the small platter, holds up to actually just over a cup and a half of food easily without any problems whatsoever.
Oh,
So
great. Yeah.
So you can use all the different green Juju supplements or whatever you want and just add it in there and let the dog do the sniffing.
And for those of you watching, the bone broth recommended dose is going to be 1 ounce per 10 pounds and or 2 ounces per 10 pounds if you're, have a senior animal or something like that, which really shouldn't be an issue. And then, the dose is on the side of the goat milk container as well. And so, yeah, I think that I'm trying to think of what I didn't cover yet when it comes to, how we can sort of specifically use it. So what I'm envisioning is maybe you take the platter and then you freeze the goat milk into the holes, and then you take
Mm-hmm.
it out, and then you could then smear some of the blends on top of that. You could add
Right.
even, let's just say, even it's not a meal and it's just another really great thing about a lot of the green juju products, so be it our blends or our fermented pastes or even our treats, is they're not really, really high in calories. They're really high in, you know, benefits and the potential health outcomes. One of the things I always want to relay to people is that you make the bulk of your dog's diet from high caloric foods, but that doesn't mean that the non high caloric foods are any less relevant or any less going to, contribute to overall health outcomes. And so things like our bone broth, things like our blends and our fermented paste are very, very few calories. An ounce of our bone broth is going to be 4 calories. And there's no animal that's going to become overweight, right, from drinking bone broth or eating our veggie blends. So do you think this would just be a great option too, using our products for dogs that just need something to do versus their meal in general?
Absolutely. And you know what I love about that idea is that it eliminates food monotony. And when you take all the different varieties of blends, pastes, everything that you have, you can create your own personalized treat plates for your pet based on their nutritional needs and without it being highly caloric. It could be a daily thing where sometime between 10 and 2, you know that you're going to get this special treat, and it creates more excitement and interaction with your pet. And that notion of anticipation, it's almost like giving them a hunt, so to speak, to go on. Like, when is this going to come? When is my mom going into the kitchen? When is this being prepared? So anything we can try to do to make that food enjoyment during the day will work wonders, and you're bringing more happiness to your pets as well.
Yeah, and somebody did ask here, although you guys have been doing an amazing job of answering these questions in the comments. So if you have questions, your social media team may have answered them in here. But somebody asked if it was made in the USA, and it is made in the USA, so that's really cool as well.
Yes, in fact, one of the things I'd like to say is that well, you're from Wisconsin, okay? So you can understand this. I live in the city of Chicago. So my experience is very different from where the manufacturing facility is, which is about 90 miles northwest of Madison. So I have to drive about 18 miles through nothing but farmland to get there. But the thing that I really love is this is my second family. And they like the city girl coming in to say, calm down now. Okay, let's just relax a little bit. And it's such a different environment. But I feel like the family is making pet platters. All of them use it for their own pets. And we employ good manufacturing processes. So everything is done to benefit the quality of the product. Good manufacturing processes aren't necessarily used everywhere, but that's an important part. So yes, we're 100% USA.
When you say 18 miles north of Madison, you're speaking my language. So terms of for those anyone who's watching from the Midwest, I am a very, very proud Midwesterner. I could not get my wife to move there, but here we are. So we love Pennsylvania, and we happen to live in Lancaster, where 3 of our wonderful products are made. And actually, for those who are Green Juju fans who are watching, Kelly's down at our production facility in Oregon, or will be soon, to do some things there. So it's nice to be able to be hands-on. So
can I just also
yeah.
add one quick thing, which so many more families now are getting multiple pets and transitioning them into a common eating environment can be problematic sometimes. So I just wanted to alert you that the pet platter comes in 3 different colors. And the reason for that is they have a different color spectrum than we do. And they can see blues and yellows, and then reds are often perceived as sort of grays or browns. But the color you first serve your pet on is the one they'll adopt as their own personal feeding territory. So if you have food stealing or food aggression, it eliminates that. But the thing that I like is if you're using, for example, different Green Juju products for different dogs based on nutritional needs, the color platter consistently will help you identify what foods are on there as well. So it acts also as a color code for any different dietary needs that they may have. But it's a great way to promote, sort of a common feeding area without, stealing and aggression and all those other things. It really does work.
That's great. That's a great idea, because so many people have different, we get a lot of feedback from people as well, and obviously have different nutritional needs for different dogs and different cats, and are using so many different, even in the same household, so many of our products. So this is a great way to even keep it straight with, let's say you have to have your husband feed the dog or something because you're gone. We hear that a lot, just a way to keep it straight. Although in our house, I feed the dog, so I'm a little too OCD to allow anyone else to do that unless I'm gone. But I do want to give a quick shout out to Ann Henkel and Tracy Ann Wright for really keeping this chat section going here. So thank you guys. A lot of questions, and like I said, your team. So let me see if there's any other things we should highlight here. Before we, so I do want to say there's a very special message from a very special pug in Northern Illinois named Bruce, who has his parents have a wonderful store called Pug and Hound. And
Hi, Bruce.
and everyone who lives in Northern Illinois should definitely check them out, because Krista is a wonderful resource, and I guess Jeff's okay too. But Chris is a wonderful resource.
You know what? I love going there because they are so knowledgeable, and they share with all of their customers. And then Bruce is just adorable. And I'm just going to say you have to visit their store, because when you meet Bruce, I mean, I drive 50 miles from Chicago to get there and 50 miles back. And I love Krista and Jeff, but Bruce is my main, go-to person there.
That is worth it. So this is great feedback. Melanie Beck says, I have 3 dogs in all 3 colors, and they do know which color is theirs.
Yay!
So
Thanks for telling me.
That's a really great example. I'm getting really high tech here. I just put it up on the screen. I don't want to brag, but here we are. And then we also have a great comment here from Whitney, who just had a birthday. So happy birthday, Whitney, who owns a store called Green Spot in Omaha, Nebraska, who says she loves her Mind Pet Platter and Green Juju, of course. And I know that they do a wonderful job selling Green Juju products, which this can be my plug before we go, which is to say, um, one of the things Green Juju prides itself on is working with local retailers, and supporting local economies. And it's important because, so if you're a retailer and you're watching this, we just want to say thank you, because
Very much.
it's the education. And if everything goes online, there won't be that education anymore. And it's the relationship, and it's your dog better than anyone, and your cat better than anyone. And second to that is the person at the pet food store that you go and see. And secondly too, your dog, we're talking on this live about the dog enjoying experiences just generally. How much do dogs love to go into the pet store? It's just something that, if you have something especially that you can walk to, is just such an incredible part of their routine. So
and you know what, Billy, it's really amazing because people like Whitney and Krista and Jeff, I mean, they really want to learn about the products. They take the time and energy to do it. And the thing that I love about having relationships with them is they're also educating me on the types of problems that pet parents are coming in with. And, what should I be addressing more, doing podcasts, or how can we help educate better? So I love the dynamic, and you are so right. Without the retailers, we just wouldn't be in.
I wouldn't have a job. So there we
Yeah.
go. So thank you. I appreciate it. No, I mean, really, if you're a retailer and you're watching this, we truly thank you, and we truly appreciate you. So it looks like Anne says she has 2 great stores in her neighborhood to find all these products. So thank you so much. So Carol,
Yeah.
in closing here, is there anything else you'd like to mention about Mind Pet Platter, or maybe how to work Green Juju into the Mind Pet Platter?
Well, I think the Green Juju product line works great on the pet platter because you offer food in so many different forms, which works great on here. The paste, the liquids, the blends, everything. And because of your product line, the platter offers the opportunity to give your dog an actual menu and to sit down. When you think about it, when we eat from a fast food container, Chinese takeout container, you sit there and you gobble it up, and then it's sort of like you're done and you go, oh my God, I'm still hungry. And part of it is, if you're not focused on the senses and the engagement with the food, I actually think it leads to this fulfilling feeling like I'm full, I've tasted everything. And again, it goes back to that satisfaction for the dog. So, I would just say, let them explore, and please don't use anything that pokes into their noses. Another item that I try to talk to people about is the insides of their noses has mucous membrane. And if it's constantly hit into, or if food goes up into it, and this is often a problem with Frenchies and pugs, the food gets shoved up into the nose. What that can lead to then is their nostrils swelling and drying out so they can't smell. And I've been looking into some more of the European things where food going up the nose is now a common problem. So that's why you want to spread everything out to the best of your ability. So just an additional FYI. But to me, the Green Juju products, because you offer so many different varieties, and then you can also, Billy, you brought up the texture. There are some scientific studies out there which show that initially wolves, as well as dogs, will use smell to select what they want. But then after that, the texture becomes important. So there was one study where there was meat, tofu, and kibble. Okay. And no dog went after the tofu type element, but it was more getting into that texture then too. So a variety of textures is important. Just like food monotony at the zoo, we give a variety of different textures and proteins to keep them engaged and get that decoding of the menu going. So it's just a way. We love Green Juju products. Use the pet platter with them, and I think you'll experience a totally different feeding experience with your dog.
Well, and I would like to say to for those Green Juju fans watching, not that I can ever say what it is, but we've come out with a lot of new products in the past, year and a half ish, and we're always working on new things. We're always cooking on some things. We got some really interesting things coming up in 2023, so look forward to that. Some more things that you can spread on the Mind Pet Platter. And to give your dog an actual true eating experience. So thank you so much, Carol. Always really appreciate sitting down with you. Really had fun hanging out in Vegas at Super Zoo with you, of course. Shout out also to Gwen of Dr. Judy's daughter. You guys were like the greatest pair there at Super Zoo, so that was pretty awesome as well. So,
and get ready for another video.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I will look for that. And all right. So everybody, as usual, I typically end these things by saying, for everybody who's watching, thank you so much for trusting Green Juju with your pet's health and for letting us make products that we think, will give your pet the best health outcome. It really, really means a lot to us that we're able to be in that position.
And you know what, Billy, I just want to say thank you. You are so wonderful to collaborate with, and your sharing of knowledge. And it has been an absolute pleasure getting to know you. And thank you for all you do for our pet community.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. On that note, I'm like, all right, bye. See you later. All right, everybody have a good night, and we will see you next month.